much. Thank you for listening at home as well. I'll just hold this right here. It's all fine. And thank you for coming. This is the Friday week eve away from our GOP convention, and I'm very excited about what we are about to come together for. This is an extremely important year. All elections are important, but I view this as a real opportunity for each one of us to be part of a team that will get this state back on track, and as Charlie and I like to say, make Massachusetts great again. We are people that are passionate about our politics, about our principles, about our values, our convictions, and we know that Massachusetts and our state government is not getting the job done for people, for families, for businesses. It's failing. It is broken. And if anyone wants to get up here and defend that, you go right ahead, because I don't think you can. And it shows that one-party control of all of the decisions on Beacon Hill is not working. When you have one party that's in the executive branch and a legislative body that is so one-party dominated, it doesn't work. I had the opportunity to start my public service as a selectman in my hometown of Shrewsbury. Some people were asking where I'm from. That's out in Worcester County, in the central part of the state. And I also had the honor of serving and being elected 5 times to the Massachusetts State Legislature. And I also had the opportunity to work when we had a Republican governor in Mitt Romney. And with that balance and that check, we had more accountability, we had more debate, we had more pressure on the system to get to the outcomes that we deserve. So that's what's exciting about this year. I'm very honored to be back out there on the campaign trail again, even though we fell short in 2010 as your candidate for state treasurer. I valued the experience, worked hard, got 1 million votes, raised over $1.3 million, and I bring all of that experience and energy and excitement to this race. And I'm very honored to be teaming up with Charlie Baker, who also had experience running in 2010, and we feel that there's unfinished business to complete in 2014 as we rally our troops, not only at the top of the ticket, but we have so many great candidates that are running at the legislative level, the congressional level, Senate, US Senate level. We have a lot of energy in our party and the conservative values that back us up. So that's what I wanted to start with today. And just also say that it really, all politics is local. So let's just start with the local government. We need a better partnership. And that partnership comes with a real promise from our state. What's been happening the last 7 years? You've had a governor that has cut aid to our cities and towns 40%. So you're seeing an unraveling in our schools, our police departments, our fire departments. Charlie and I have a plan. We said, as we grow our state revenues, which we will when we're elected, by just reducing the cost of doing business on our employers, we can start to ramp up employment and grow our state revenues. We said, if state revenues grow a certain percentage, we'll share that percentage-wise with our communities, with a promise in return that they bargain responsibly, they pay their bills on time, they save for their future, and the liabilities for pension and health care for their retirees. It's got to be a true partnership. Let's talk about states' rights. We are in Massachusetts, a state that has some of the best universities and colleges, technology, medical breakthroughs, yet our unemployment is higher than the national average, which is totally unacceptable. When I'm out there on the campaign trail, I hear from people that just want to work and try to get ahead to help their families. They're doing it all right. They're paying their bills. They're, playing by the rules, and they just can't get ahead. And when we have so many people dependent on our government that really just need to be nudged into a path where they can work and have opportunity to make their lives better, to self-sufficiency, that's the path we need to get on. We can't sustain what we're growing in this state. And when you think about the state, we passed health care 7 years ago in Massachusetts. We took care of the idea that we want to get everyone access to health insurance. We're 98% insured in this state. That's a good thing. Now, it's not a perfect policy. We still need to work on costs and transparency, but we certainly don't need the feds saying, you need Obamacare here. Okay, we're already complying on so many levels. The same thing goes for our education. When you look at Common Core, it's another example of the feds in Washington, D.C. telling us that they know better how to educate our kids. I'm a mother. I have 2 children in public schools. They go to the same elementary school that I did growing up. Next week is MCAS. We have a system of accountability. We measure results. So why do we need another layer of bureaucracy upon us? In fact, Charlie Baker testified against this at a public hearing more than a year ago, because he knows that is not helping our state move in the right direction. Just quickly on a couple of other things, and then I'd like to open it up for questions. Driver's licenses. You know, it's just amazing to me that the legislature is again revisiting this issue, when we are one of the states that doesn't even comply with the Real ID Act. Anyone know what the Real ID Act is? Okay, we're lagging behind. And when I'm out there, like I said, listening to people that are playing by the rules every day, they say, why would we give licenses to those that are not here legally? It's just perpetuating a problem. And it's another example of Washington, D.C. needs to make some decisions and take the step forward to fix this problem and not allow Massachusetts the opportunity to exacerbate it. Charlie and I have a very firm position on that. When you're talking about issues of accountability, you've got the gas tax. Now, I want to thank many of you for signing the petitions and having that question go on the ballot. That's a very important question before the people, because it's about really process. When you're talking about your taxes, the money that you contribute to the state, you should know exactly how that money is being spent. And we have responsibility to make sure it's being used wisely. But automatic increases do not force the legislative body to have to take a vote, which goes against what I believe in. That's what we're elected for. And also, it doesn't hold the system accountable so that you know where every penny of that increase goes. So having to come back to the legislature and revisit those issues is a good thing. Let me just say a couple more things on the state government. When you look at the bureaucracy that has grown so big, you're seeing things really start to crack. And when you see a 5-year-old boy now being lost in a system of bureaucracy, he was lost track of, that's not acceptable to us. It's time that we bring that balance back. It's time that you have capable, competent people that have managed things in the private sector, both Charlie and I have, and also have worked in the public sector and know how to get things done. We need more of that now more than ever, and I believe we can win this. We bring that experience. We have an open seat at the top of the ticket, and I believe whoever wins this election in November will be your governor and lieutenant governor for the next 8 years. If you think 8 years, yep. And I hope you're clapping for us, for our team, because if the other team gets in there, it'll be 8 more years of what you're getting, and we cannot afford that for our children and for your future. So thank you for the time this morning, and I'd love to hear from you and entertain your questions.
All right, questions. Way up. Who's up asking the question?
My name's Dave Could you
Yes.
talk about a little bit about your approach to solving, or at least helping to solve the problems with OPEB and the unfunded pension liability?
Yeah.
They're two different.
Yes, and I think I'm going to touch upon that a little bit. These are municipalities have an obligation to their employees to pay for their health care in retirement as well as their pension, okay? Some cities and towns are doing a good job and some aren't. And we, a few years ago when I was in the legislature, did pass a reform that if you were not paying a certain percentage of those liabilities, then you would automatically have to come into the state GIC system, and that was a good move. But you cannot keep kicking the can down the road and extending the time to pay off these obligations. It's not responsible for the retiree, and it's not responsible for the community's budget. So that means, like I said, if we're going to increase the aid to our cities and towns, it has to come as part of an agreement in a contract that we'll promise to give you more aid, but you have to promise to pay your liabilities responsibly and to negotiate your contracts with your employees responsibly and to operate a municipality with a solid budget within your means.
Right.
And add one.
thing I'm concerned about as a taxpayer out in the suburbs of Norwell is that I don't want to be, and I wouldn't want the people in my town to have to subsidize the pensions for overpaid bureaucrats that work for Tom Anita. When you look at the salaries that he's paid, and you take a look at his family, they are just extraordinarily well compensated, especially when you factor in the value there. And I just, in your system, are we as a state?
All right, you gotta frame it in a question, because Karen has.
I understand it. It sort of reminds me of the federal healthcare system. Why should we be paying for someone else's health insurance in Tennessee? Let's just take care of it ourselves. And I think you feel that same way for each city and town.
Ted, you got a question?
Hope you don't mind a tough question early in the morning.
Let's go.
Okay, your name came up in the report on the scandal in the probation department. How are you and your campaign going to handle that going forward?
Well, first of all, there's no scandal. Okay, I served in the state legislature for 10 years, and I had a person that was a dispatcher in the Shrewsbury Police Department, and he approached me and said, I would like to gain better employment. I have the skills, and I'd like to be interviewed for a position in the Massachusetts state court system. Qualified, capable, solid track record as an employee of the town of Shrewsbury. And as a state representative, you recommend someone for a position to be considered. I think that's a responsible and appropriate thing to do.
So there's nothing there.
As someone who come out of that
That's it.
system,
Wait,
that's the
hold
way
on,
it goes.
Dan.
That's the way it goes. You did what was done. There's nothing against you. That's the way the system was and still is, and I've been in that system for 30 years before I retired.
All right, Matt?
Quick question, and it ties into this gentleman's. Mentioning about overpaid people in the Menino administration, the fellow that ran the Green Line trolley off the track as a driver, in I think it was 2012, earned $101,000 to be a driver for the MBTA. Which is why they want to increase the RV fees, why they want to increase, why we just had a Department of Transportation bill. It reminds me of the thing about, here's the mop, clean up the basement, but there's a water fountain pouring into the corner. How is the Department of Transportation problem? How do you envision fixing something like that, particularly since we can't privatize it, because the Senate just killed getting rid of the Pacheco law?
Okay, that's a big question, and it's a big problem, no question. The idea, first of all, first and foremost, you need a new leadership team in the executive branch. You need balance on Beacon Hill, and you need a team of Republicans that have managed things in the private sector. Charlie Baker turned around Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare because he built a team, held it accountable, and got results. And the other part of this is exactly why we're opposing the increase automatic in the gas tax, because that increase will go to paying salaries that probably are not in measure with the job description of the employee. And so you need that level of accountability built into the system so that we don't do those things.
All
So
right, Ed.
what we can have a conversation offline about
Maybe
further
two
details on that.
Another tough
Ed.
question. On Fox 25, I saw Charlie Baker being interviewed about the child welfare assistance head. They asked him directly if he wanted her to resign. He danced around the issue. Are you guys still dancing around the issue, or have you firmed it up? Because even Leah Cole has circulated a letter in the legislature calling for her to be dismissed.
Okay, let me clarify this. This is the Department of Children and Families. Olga Roche is the commissioner there. It's obvious that the system there is not working. Charlie Baker was the first candidate for governor, and he's the only candidate for governor that is called to ask her to step down. He was very clear about that from the very beginning, and he still remains the only candidate to call for her to be removed from the office.
Yeah,
Okay.
Joyce?
There's a de-letting law in Massachusetts that says if you have a child under 6, you have to de-let your property. And it's especially important and rent it. But if you live there, you don't have to do it. Does Charlie Baker see anything about that? Does he have any position on that? Does he have any knowledge about that? Because that would be a great law to get rid of.
Okay.
If you live there, and if you own it and live there, you don't have to de-let it. Well, aren't your children important? But if you rent it, you have to de-let it.
Okay.
I'd love to know what the national law is.
And we can talk, obviously, further about that specific issue, but let me just give you a general idea of how we think. First of all, I own a business. I'm in the real estate and construction business, so I understand buildings. I understand the regulations and the permitting in this state are costing us jobs and making it very difficult for businesses to thrive and grow and create more opportunities for people. Having said that, Charlie and I also know that we need to do a top to bottom review when we are elected of all the regulations that exist on the books, determine what is working, what is no longer appropriate, and get rid of them. And it's time that we do this. It's been 8 years under one party. It's time that we have a fresh look at all of these things. If it makes sense, we keep it. If we don't, we kick it out.
Okay, one more quick question for Karen. Anyone? Yes, one.
Karen, what do you think are the weakest, the most dangerous aspects of what the Democrats have done and how you're going to exploit that to win?
Oh, gosh, where do we start? It's kind of a long list here.
It's a softball question.
I just think it's the lack of accountability in our state government. I think the taxes and spending mentality, where you just, every time there's a problem, you just raise the taxes and spend more money. You can't keep throwing more money at these problems. You have to hit the root cause of the issues that are so prevalent, hurting families, hurting growth, hurting businesses, and not allowing our state to kick it up to the notch it should be at and be great again. There's a lot to talk about. But holding the line on all of those things, bringing that balance back will be a very good place to start.
Karen, thank you very much.
Thank you for your vote. We ask for your vote, we ask for your support, and have a great morning listening to one of the best, Barbara Anderson.
All right, next up, on the agenda we have Frank DiVinola, but I actually got an email from him.